Good evening. Thank you so much for coming down and joining us here this evening. I'm delighted to see this size crowd. Thank you so much for coming out. Welcome to your historic Plaza Theater and our inaugural year-long film series, underwritten in part by Culture Works and Montgomery County. This is a century of cinema. This month, it's all about Hollywood bombshells from the Golden Age, Jean Harlow to Marilyn Monroe. The first was born Harlene Harlow Carpenter in March 1911 at Kansas City. Her parents divorced. She and her mother moved to Hollywood. Jean was 12. Jean married the first time at 16 to a 21-year-old from Chicago who was heir to a significant fortune. Jean and her first hubby returned to Los Angeles in 1928 and settled into the life of socialites from their Beverly Hills home. Harlow stumbled into film work after taking a friend to an audition at Fox Studios. Over the next few years, she worked as an extra until being discovered by Howard Hughes, who cast her in his refilming of Hell's Angels. By now, she is officially Jean Harlow. This was her first major film appearance, which was the highest grossing film of 1930. Hughes lost interest in Harlow, but not before he created a sensation from dyeing her hair a platinum blonde color from a weekly application of ammonia, Clorox bleach, and Lux soap flakes. Female fans across America started dyeing their hair to match, and platinum blonde clubs sprang up across the country. Jean Harlow was the original choice to play the screaming blonde heroine in RKO's 1933 King Kong, but the part went to Fay Wray, who wore a blonde wig. Jean had a brief career and is mostly associated with the 6 films she made with Clark Gable. While filming Saratoga in 1937, Harlow fell ill on the set. It was her 6th film with Gable. Jean Harlow died days later of kidney failure. She was 26. Clark Gable has the distinction of being in the lives of 3 bombshells at or near their passing. He was filming Harlow's final film when she died. The Misfits was Monroe's last film, written by her 3rd ex-hubby, Arthur Miller.
Gee, goes on forever.
There's no better place to be. You couldn't find better company either.
It's like a dream.
But we'll never see this again in history, you know.
You kill him?
Contact!
18 months later, Marilyn died under what are still suspicious circumstances. In 1942, Carol Lombard perished in a Nevada plane crash after raising $2 million in her native Indiana at a war bond rally. She was married to Gable at the time. She was 33.
Oh, here it comes.
You know, there's something about men.
Yeah, it's so simple.
You never have to guess what's on their minds.
Oh, love, I don't want anything to do with it.
Our next bombshell, Mae West, shown here in one of her most famous scenes from 1933's She'd Done Him Wrong. Recognize anyone else?
You know, I always did like a man in a uniform. And that one fits you grand. Why don't you come up sometime and see me? I'm home every evening.
Yep, a very young Cary Grant. Next we have Marlene Dietrich. Years ago, Americans were stunned when Madonna and Britney Spears kissed on stage during the 2003 MTV Awards show. Shocking, never before seen, you think? Marlene Dietrich beat them by decades.
May I have this? Of course.
This clip makes me think Joel Grey was inspired to create his cabaret movie look decades later, duplicating Marlena's persona. Some in Hollywood are really good at parody. Mel Brooks is possibly one of the best. From 1974, we have Madeline Kahn in her send-up of Mae West and Marlene Dietrich from Blazing Saddles.
I'm tired, sick and tired of love. Let's face it, I'm tired. Hello, cowboy. What's your name?
Tex, ma'am.
Tax name. Tell me, tax name, are you in show business?
Nope.
Well, then why don't you get your friggin' feet up?
Kahn was Oscar nominated for her portrayal in this film. Ginger Rogers, like Lombard and Harlow, was another Midwest-born beauty. Most famous for her work with Fred Astaire. I'm especially fond of this quote from Ginger when asked about Astaire. I did everything Fred did, only backwards and in high heels. Very true. Once again, we cross paths with Howard Hughes. This time it's his film about Billy the Kid, the outlaw, introducing Jane Russell. This film was completed in 1941, but censorship at the time over the ample display of Russell's cleavage kept it out of general release until 1946. Howard Hughes invented an underwire bra for Russell to wear during the filming. Years later, Russell admitted she threw away the specially made bra, and Bob Hope joked, "Culture is the ability to describe Jane Russell without using your hands." Here's bombshell Ava Gardner. The Godfather movie would have you believe the mafia arranged for a certain singer getting a film role. Not true. Ava Gardner was married to Frank Sinatra. His career as a Bobby Sox crooner was in shambles. Ava's friendship with the wife of a studio head got Sinatra the role in From Here to Eternity and an Oscar for Frank. His pay, a measly $8,000. Ava and Frank had epic battles and legendary making up sessions. When Ava left Frank, he was so despondent he slit his wrists in a suicide attempt. But it all worked out okay for Frank. This brings us to the 1950s and what is commonly referred to as the 3 M's: Monroe, Mansfield, and Mamie Van Doren. Born in South Dakota, Joan Louise Olander will be 91 on February 6th. You know her now as Mamie Van Doren. Universal renamed her after First Lady Mamie Eisenhower. While Monroe succeeded in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and Mansfield had big success replacing Van Doren in Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter, Universal stuck Van Doren with Francis the Talking Mule. In 1954's Francis Joins the Wax. Mamie now lives in LA and has been married to a dentist since 1979. Jane Mansfield began life as Vera Jane Palmer. During her 13-year career in the 50s and 60s, Jane had 3 husbands and 5 children. The most famous child is Mariska Hargitay, longtime TV superstar on the Dick Wolf Law and Order series. An early Playboy playmate, Jane led a very well-publicized personal life and was well known for publicity stunts. She invented the wardrobe malfunction. Jane and agent companion Sam Brody ran a 1966 Buick Electra driven by a 20-year-old. At 2:55 a.m., the car crashed at a high speed into the rear of a semi-truck that had slowed behind a truck spraying mosquito fogger. The 3 adults in the front seat were killed instantly. 3 children, including Mariska, asleep in the rear seat, survived with minor injuries. Jane was 34. The trucking industry ultimately embraced the requirement of beams on the lower rear of trailers, sometimes called the Mansfield bar. And now we find ourselves with Marilyn, born Norma Jean Mortensen at Los Angeles in 1926. Norma Jean spent most of her childhood in foster homes and an orphanage. She was working in a factory during World War II when she was spotted by a photographer and began a successful pinup modeling career. She appeared on the cover of the original Playboy magazine and was the first ever centerfold. Rather than scandal, this only enhanced the sex appeal of Hollywood's newest bombshell. In her brief life, she married 3 times. At 16 to her high school sweetheart, James Daugherty, to New York Yankees superstar Joe DiMaggio, and finally to Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Arthur Miller. In today's dollars, Marilyn's films grossed the equivalent of $2 billion. In 1999, the American Film Institute ranked Monroe 6th on its list of greatest female legends from the golden age of Hollywood. Debbie Reynolds collected thousands of movie costumes and memorabilia during her decades in Hollywood. This dress, worn by Marilyn in the movie The 7-Year Itch, sold at a 2011 Reynolds auction for $5.6 million. Incidentally, the dress is a size 14. A red sequin dress worn by Marilyn sold for $1.5 million in the same auction. At the time of her death, Marilyn had under $2,000 in her bank account. She was 36. This subway grate scene was filmed twice, once in New York, once on a soundstage in Hollywood. Husband Joe DiMaggio was so incensed over this scene that it contributed to their divorce. Each of you should have received a free raffle ticket as a thank you for attending. This iconic pose, created by speed artist Mark Theskin, will be given away this Sunday. Our concession stand has additional raffle tickets that everybody can purchase, $5 each or 7 for $20. Tonight, we bring you Some Like It Hot, a 1959 film directed by Billy Wilder, starring Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon. This romantic comedy is considered by many to be one of the greatest comedy films of all time. Produced on a budget of under $3 million, by 1962, the box office gross had reached $14 million. As of 2020, over $83 million worldwide. It was nominated for 5 Oscars and won 3 Golden Globes. Pat O'Brien, George Raft, and Joe E. Brown round out the cast with a cameo by Edward G. Robinson as hitman Johnny Paradise. Filming took place in California, not Florida. As an aside, this film was produced without approval from the Motion Picture Production Code, known as the Hays Code, because of its portrayal of cross-dressing. The film's overwhelming success is considered one of the reasons the highly restrictive Hays Code was replaced. Joe E. Brown's famous last line in this film was ad-libbed and meant to be replaced. It never was. Here now from 1959, Some Like It Hot. Thank you, enjoy the holidays, and next month, it's Clint Eastwood.